If you ask me what would be the most restrained term to use for today and the conditions here, it would be madness. Quite simply, madness reigned. Madness has reigned here in Brussels. Today, the agenda of the foreign ministers' meeting on Ukraine went through as if nothing had happened. We negotiated another $100 billion in aid for Ukraine as if it were not the scene of one of the worst corruption scandals in European political history. Today, at a meeting of foreign ministers, there was a motion to send more money to Ukraine, preferably to cover the next few years of the Ukrainian state and the Ukrainian army. They proposed to send more weapons to Ukraine, with the possibility of using the European Defense Capabilities Facility to buy weapons for Ukraine. And there was a proposal to sanction Russian energy companies, which would obviously be another blow to the European economy. So, regardless of the fact that Ukraine will be the scene of one of the worst corruption scandals in European political history, the initiative in Brussels is to send more money and more weapons to Ukraine and to impose new sanctions on energy supplies. And let's do all this for an unwinnable war. This is what I call madness. But unfortunately, this can be taken even further. Because today, several foreign minister colleagues have said that the corruption scandal in Ukraine is another reason to admit Ukraine to the European Union. And now many may be surprised. This sentence should have been said in reverse, with the meaning reversed. Is that really normal? But the thing is, it's not normality here, it's a madhouse. So I'll say it again. So today, a number of foreign minister colleagues have argued that the corruption scandal in Ukraine is yet another reason to admit Ukraine to the European Union. Now, that's the madness that must be stopped. They said that in order to prevent further corruption scandals, Ukrainians should be admitted to the European Union. This is where we are today. Clearly, this is a madness that must be stopped immediately. Ukraine has a system of power corruption at the highest level of state functioning. A war mafia, which has led to who knows where the euros of the European people have gone, which is also dangerous. It's very dangerous that some of the European politicians, a large part of them, have been reacting to the news that some kind of peace plan is being prepared to resolve the Russian war in Ukraine. He made it clear that they are still interested in undermining the peace process. All sorts of doubts and objections to a possible peace plan were expressed. It is clear that European politicians still do not want peace and will do everything to prevent a peace agreement. And to add to the madness, the High Representative of the European Union has repeatedly praised the Ukrainian attacks on the Russian energy system. Clearly, such a statement is a threat to Europe's energy security, and such a statement, the glorification of these attacks, clearly poses a risk of escalation. The Ukrainian foreign minister was also caught on video at the beginning. I wouldn't say long, about 1.5, but it could be 2. Let us be more lenient. He spent 2 sentences on the corruption scandal in his country. He was more concerned with his proposal to impose tariffs on products from Russia, or anything that comes from Russia, in addition to sanctions, saying that you don't need unanimity for that. So, just to be sure, it has also come up with such a demand, which is dangerous for Hungary. The fact is that today, here in Brussels, the political elite is held hostage by an illusion. This illusion is that Ukraine can win this war. This is very far from reality. It is nothing more than an illusion. Of course, the Ukrainian victory is an illusion. The Ukrainians have the right to continue the war, but the decision or the right of the Ukrainians to continue the war does not impose any moral or legal obligation on Europe, on the European Union. It is profoundly against Europe's interests to support Ukraine. It is profoundly against Europe's interests to pump European money and arms into the continuation of this war, this unwinnable war. At the same time, I also believe that it would be in Europe's interest to start negotiations with Russia as soon as possible, so that after a possible agreement with the US, the European Union is not left out of a successful future cooperation with the West in the East. And finally, I also think that it is a lie that Ukraine is fighting for Europe. It is a lie that the security of Europe depends on Ukraine. Europe's security does not depend on Ukraine. Europe's security depends on improving the defense capabilities of European countries. Europe's security depends on the way in which the member states of the European Union can strengthen their own defense capabilities, their own defense industries, their own armies. Arming the Ukrainian army is not about the security of Europe. It means something quite different. Europe's security is about improving the defense capabilities of European countries, not arming Ukraine. In short, not only are we not contributing to the European Union, sending more money and more weapons to Ukraine. Not only do we not agree to the Hungarian people's money being sent to Ukraine, but we demand that Ukraine immediately pay back the EU subsidies it has received so far. We demand that Ukraine show how it has spent the money of the European people, and we demand that Ukraine give an account of how much of the money of European taxpayers has been used by the corruption network. How much of the money of the European people has been taken by the war mafia? How much money from EU funds has been eaten up by the corrupt system of power that Ukraine has? Not only are we not allowing Hungarian money to be sent to Ukraine, but we are demanding that Ukraine immediately pay back the EU funds it has received so far. We can do all this, of course, as long as Hungary has a national government. Let us be in no doubt that if a puppet government from Brussels were to take our place, it would immediately contribute to sending the Hungarian people's money to Ukraine, sending arms to Ukraine, and allowing a corrupt regime to operate unhindered in Ukraine, which Alibaba is digging, who knows whether to expose in part or in full. If oil and nuclear cooperation with Russia is abandoned, Hungarian energy bills will triple in the short term for Hungarian families. We will not allow this. We will not allow the energy costs of Hungarian families to be increased by sanction-mad European politicians, especially since the United States has exempted Hungary from sanctions on both oil and gas purchases, and has lifted the beaten sanctions against the construction of the new units of the PAX nuclear power plant. So, while on the other side of the ocean, 9 hours flying time from here, they understand that Hungary's geographical position means that without energy from Russia, it is physically impossible to supply the country. Here in Brussels, less than 2 hours' flight from Budapest, they don't understand. This is also a sign of madness. But of course, since sanctions require unanimity, we will not allow companies that cooperate with Hungary, whether in the oil industry or in the nuclear industry, to be sanctioned. We will not let you. As for von der Leyen's 3 proposals on how then to take European people's money to Ukraine, What all these proposals have in common is that, at the end of the day, they all take European people's money to Ukraine. You can draw up different methods here and use magic words like frozen assets, joint credit, I don't know what. The bottom line is that President von der Leyen has put three proposals on the table, all three of which, at the end of the day, will take European people's money to Ukraine, and that is unacceptable.